Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, May 13th meeting of the Onalaska Common Council. It is 7 p.m. The first item on the agenda is the roll call. I will ask our city clerk, Joanne Marcon, to call the roll.
Mayor Kim Smith,
Here.
Jim Benash,
Here.
Kathy Loendorf, here, Stephen Knott,
Present.
Mike Milky,
Here.
Larry Jurassic,
Present.
Diane Wolf, here.
Thank you for that. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Thank you for that. The rules of the Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees. This is a harassment-free forum. Meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, obscene remarks, or threats of violence. Sufficient warnings may be given by the sergeant at arms or the chair at any time during the remarks. And in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum as set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment or debate. Item 4 is public input. Now is the time. If any member from the public would like to give input to the Onalaska Common Council, if you choose to do so, please come forward to the podium. Begin by stating your name and your address and limit your comments to 3 minutes per individual. Would anyone like to address the Common Council at this time? Come on up. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Neil Pfaff with Veerbecker Associates. My address is 201 East Main Street, Reedsburg, Wisconsin. I'm here to discuss the 1030 Fairfield rezone application that was presented at the Plan Commission. The rezone application was going from a R2 zoning and a request to go to R4. There was quite a bit of concerns from the community, mainly due to traffic concerns, et cetera. We understand, if a traffic study would be done, based on my opinion, a traffic study would support that type of development. The reason why the rezone request was presented initially is because as part of the comprehensive plan, it was intended or identified as a good parcel to be rezoned. There's a housing need within the community. Therefore, my client intended to provide housing at affordable rates. However, very aesthetically pleasing. There was a site plan presented that showed the layout. However, the intent of the rezone was not a site plan approval. It was purely a rezone to allow higher density. This would have been a public street up until the parcel, and then a private street throughout this. So no funding from the municipality was part of this project. It was purely a developer interested in providing housing to this community. Stormwater management, screening, retaining walls, et cetera, was also part of this. And then also coordination with the fire department to make sure that emergency accesses was able to come in and out of this development. So the due diligence was done on this parcel. However, it was denied mainly because of the community's input and the lack of sidewalks, because the community does not have sidewalks up into this road on Fairfield Street. So there was pictures shown of people walking in the street. However, a sidewalk could be proposed to connect this development. And I'm sure there's other areas in the city that does not have sidewalks, et cetera. So that's an engineering problem that can be solved. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Oh, sorry for that being so loud. Is there anyone else? Welcome.
Jacob Mooney, 1231 East Ave North, Onalaska, Wisconsin. I'm here for the rezone R2 to R4 on 1030 Fairfield. I'm going to start out with your connections on your strategic plan that you asked your employees. In the next 5 years, what potential hurdles do you think the city of Onalaska will face? Budget constraints, budget, economical restrictions, lack of growth, inability to grow, Budgets will continue to be tight. Budgeting, land, budget shortfalls, running out of land to grow, growth, constraints on developable land, increased revenue, budget constraints, funding, growth, room for growth, lack of growth and budget troubles, more budgetary issues, lack of property for development and growing our tax base. And then you jump over staff challenges, top one available housing. I mean, it's creative redevelopment of properties. It's all over this. And then positives from the development, I think that are being overlooked, a turnaround on the end of Fairfield Street. Right now, your plow truck's got to pull in, back out. If their duplexes down there get packages, UPS has got to back around that park. You know, that big turnaround you can see on that, 2 fire hydrants, one at the end and then one all the way at the end of the development. They could serve them houses around there. And then townhouses, which were in your comprehensive plan that you really wanted. They're a stepping stone to home ownership. Right now, a lot of people can't afford homes, but they can afford to rent one of these and maybe they'll live here forever and maybe they'd be able to buy a home in the community, you know, if they start moving more. We were going to name it Fairfield Court condominiums. They aren't condos. We can't condo them out, but people could tell their friends they're condo, you know. You know, utilization at Fairfield Street. Right now, there's 4 houses and 1 duplex on the north side of the street. The south side, 7 houses and 2 duplexes. It's only 700 feet and they're getting on a major sidewalk, half-mile walk to both high schools. Yeah, I guess I felt like we did everything we could to align this with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Welcome, Stephen Jersa, 1024 Monroe Street. I'm just going over a couple of things. I've been in contact with the city for Public Works, whatever, for our road, Monroe Street and 10th Avenue North from Monroe up to Well Street. Been a resident for about 10 years now. Love living here. It's great. A little bit better than living to the south here. Also, thanks for all the firefighters being here and the police. It's great. First off, the road is really bumpy. We've been asking for a while, 10 years, to see if it can get repaved because it's been pretty bad. 2016, I reached out. They said we are on a 3-year plan. We will be done sometime within the 3 years. 3 years passed, nothing happened. 2019, checked in again, still nothing. And they said, nope, sorry, you're going to be on a new 5-year plan. That ended a year and a half ago. Nothing except some tar. They put some tar down on some of the cracks and then snowplows just come by. I'm at the end of the cul-de-sac. All that tar gets put up in my yard. I've reached out again and we just say, oh yeah, we're out of money. I don't know where everything goes, but they had money for the curb and gutter, for sewer, lateral, utilities, and all of a sudden it's all gone. I work a lot. I work at the community center and I hear a common thing around there. It's just money. We got lots of it. It's kind of discouraging when I have to drive 15 miles an hour up in my work van because tools are falling out of my work van. It would just be nice to have somebody that's not just a yes man or whatever to come up, drive up Monroe Street, try to drive 25 miles an hour and see if you can keep a quarter cup of water from spilling out of your drink. It'd be nice. You pay a lot of taxes. It's a nice community. You guys take care of the roads. Everything is nice. It would just be nice. Even if 10th Avenue North, we're on a cul-de-sac. I get that, but 10th Avenue North, that's pretty bad. Everybody complains. Nobody knows what to do. I work with a lot of different people. One of your employees told me, come here and start talking and see if a squeaky wheel can get the grease. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hello, Richard Johnson, 1020 Monroe Street, right next door to Steve. And I would just ask the council members to take a drive up Monroe Street and see how poorly the roads have turned out. So I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to give public input this evening? Anyone else liking to give public input this evening? Do you see anyone online? Third and final call for anyone wishing to give public input this evening. Public input is now closed, and we'll move on to item 5, the report from the mayor. Item A is recognition of the part-time firefighters completing their 1-year probation. This is very exciting. I'd like to welcome up our chief, Pete Fletty, to proceed with the ceremony. Welcome, chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. We're here with great pride tonight to recognize 4 members of our fire department. Firefighters Luke Leclerc, Miles Boyu, Evan Kuyak, and Andrew April, who have officially completed their probationary periods. Over the past year, these firefighters have been tested in every possible way, physically, mentally, and emotionally. They faced demands of the emergency response, adapted quickly under pressure, and proven themselves as dependable members of our team. Probation isn't just a time of evaluation, it's a time of growth. Luke, Miles, Evan, and Andrew have shown commitment, professionalism, and a deep sense of service throughout this process. They've earned the trust of their fellow firefighters, their officers, and the residents they protect. And I also like to just say that each one of them, while they have been going through probation, have been at least in one fire class, if not a fire class and an EMT class. They each have at least one job. Some own their own business besides being a part-time firefighter. So their time is stretched very thin. We appreciate them very much for everything they've given. So tonight we welcome them fully into the ranks, not only as recruits, but as established firefighters, ready for the challenges and responsibilities ahead. On behalf of the department, we thank you all for your continued support, and please join me in congratulating these 4 outstanding individuals. Thank you. So with that, if you don't mind, we'll call each one of them up individually to do their badge pinning.
Yeah, and as I usually say, if someone is taking the photos, feel free to stand where you need to stand to get your good photo.
And I'll introduce the first victim, Evan Kuyak, and his girlfriend McKenna will be pinning him. Assistant Chief Southworth will be pinning the rest of our firefighters. So let's invite up Luke Leclerc. And Miles Boyu. And last but not least, Andrew April. Thank you very much and congrats, gents.
Thank you, firefighters. Okay, item B is a report from the Bluffland Coalition. I'd like to welcome Pat Wilson, who is the president of the Bluffland Coalition. He's also affiliated with the Friends of the Bluffland. And then also Marie Friedland, who is the county board representative on the Bluffland Coalition. They're here to talk about the mission and goals of that organization and also the project focus. And I will go on to say that City of Onalaska also is part of the Bluffland Coalition. We have been for quite some time. I myself have been our representative there, and currently Lean from our Park and Rec Department is our representative on that coalition. So with that said, I'll turn it over to you, Pat, and Maureen. Welcome.
Thank you, and we're happy to be here and talk a little bit about the Bluffland Coalition, and then Maureen has more on funding possibilities through the county, which I think would be useful to the city. The Bluffland Coalition was started in 2016, and as you said, the City of Onalaska is a member of the coalition, and I want to acknowledge that it was a very early supporter of the coalition and their work. And the coalition's vision statement is the Bluffland Coalition will establish an exceptional network of contiguous protected lands and recreation trails throughout the La Crosse-La Crescent region. Our cooperative efforts will enhance the health of residents, visitors, natural ecosystems, and our local economy. And we think it does enhance the health of all those things, and that's why we're trying to protect our local blufflands. And we're trying to protect it through a regional approach to conservation and recreation. I gave one of these brochures to everybody. If you look at the back page of that brochure, it talks about our goals: bluffland protection, restore and preserve natural habitat, create accessible spaces for public recreation. And the members are listed there. And it was started by the La Crosse County. They had a study done that was published in 2016 called The Blufflands, a plan for conservation and recreation throughout the La Crosse-La Crescent region. And in that, the initial plan was that the governmental entities who were members would contribute money to the coalition and they would hire staff. And Onalaska, La Crescent, and the town of Shelby were the three local municipalities that actually went along. They contributed money along with La Crosse County, and we did have staff for a few years, but we reached the point where we decided we need more than just those three entities for this regional approach. And the way to do that was to not have any funding requirements and not have staff. Now that means we don't have staff to do work, but it's all handled in part by all the municipalities who are members and the nonprofits who are members, Mississippi Valley Conservancy, the Outdoor Recreation Alliance, and Friends of the Blufflands. And just the one thing from that, I handed out a map. I'm sorry, here. I handed out a map of the priority areas as specified in that 2016 plan. And you can see that the Onalaska Holman Blufflands are priority 1, along with the La Crosse Blufflands and the La Crescent. So I guess that's all I need to cover right now, unless there are questions. I don't know how to make that stay on again. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for letting me be here tonight. And I'm not here to ask for money. I'm actually here to tell you of some opportunities that you all may have for doing some projects. We fund projects by a combination of grants, tax funds, charitable contributions, volunteer labor, and other stakeholders like the Fish and Wildlife have participated in projects. So the money that Onalaska might have access to at this point includes $100,000 that was approved by the county board last year in our budget and set aside, and then $200,000 that the county board appropriated the year before and set aside. It's been about $500,000 total. Right now, we have about $193,000. We had CapEx funding for a while there, but that was used up, and now we're doing budget allocations. We're hoping, at least I'm hoping, to have a yearly amount that goes to this long-term project of protecting our blufflands. We've put a lot of money into the community trail farm project in Shelby, which is a really big project, but most of the projects that we've funded have been in the neighborhood of about $10,000. And those have been for connecting hiking trails, habitat restoration, reforestation, and invasive control. We've done about 6 projects this year, or we have 6 projects underway. So basically, the process is by application to the coalition, which then goes to the county board. The proposed projects need the support of the local municipality through funding or staff support. That's the process that needs to take place first. And generally, this means that 50% or more of the local funding is needed for the total project cost. So we figure that we've preserved about 3,700 of the 7,000 acres that's envisioned by the Blufflands plan. We have them secured one way or another, either through purchase or easements, other mechanisms. We probably need $10 or $15 million to do that. And we know that that's not really possible. This is a long-term project. This is a long-term vision. It's for economic development, recreation, health. It conforms, it comports with all the comprehensive plans of all the different municipalities in the area, as well as the coalition. And we think we could do this if we do a little bit at a time. So we urge you to consider us and see what projects we can get going together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Does anyone have any questions before they walk away? Any counselors have any questions? No. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, item C, Capital Connections Wisconsin Municipality Day. I was just gonna do a quick note that on May 7th, myself, Alderperson Jim Benash and Assistant Chief Jeremy Southworth traveled to the Capitol for the League of Municipalities sponsored day with our representatives. We did meet with Steve Doyle and Brad Paff for an update of what's going on at the Capitol and had an opportunity to have one-on-one meetings with them. It was very educational and also kind of inspiring, you know, to get to have that one-on-one time with our representatives. Jim, did you want to add anything?
No.
How about you, Jeremy? Okay, so it was a really good experience, and just a note, thanks to the League of Municipalities for sponsoring that on alternating years. So this was our year to go. Item D, Public Service Week proclamation. The proclamation is in your packet. That was last week. Just want to do a shout out to definitely thank all public service people, but definitely our own City of Onalaska employees. We greatly appreciate all that you do for our community in ways that I don't think the community truly understands, all the things that go on that you all do to make Onalaska such a special place. So thank you very much. We appreciate you. And also for the employee group for organizing some of the great appreciation events. I know the gift card drawing and the ice cream were some of the top highlights that I heard about. I didn't get to partake in them, but I did hear about them. So thank you for that and making it just kind of a special week for all of our employees. I think everyone appreciated it, but we do appreciate you. Next up is just a series of recognitions from the Onalaska Area Business Association Awards. Their annual event was held on April 29th. And I know I have a lot on the agenda. It's been very busy. There actually were more events than this. These are just the highlights. But at that event, Onalaska really took home all the trophies. I'll just highlight quickly 3 main ones. The Hero Award, which is somebody who is nominated from our community. It's open to all of our heroes. So it could be a police-related person, fire-related, nurse, teacher, etc. But the Hero Award was given to our own police officer, Rick Proctor. So shout out to Rick for that award. It's very well deserved, and we do appreciate him and all of our police officers. So thank you to the Onalaska Area Business Association for recognizing him. That was a really nice award for him to receive. The President's Award is given out by the president of the Onalaska Area Business Association. He can choose anyone that he wants based on whatever criteria he chooses. In this case, he selected the Onalaska Park and Rec Department and gave the award to Dan Wick for all the things Onalaska Park and Rec does to help support our community. And I think that we see that all the places and lives that the Onalaska Park and Rec Department touches just really incredible. And we do all appreciate them. Kind of nice to see that, especially so close to Public Service Appreciation Time. I also get to give out an award, which I was kind of flattered when this was kind of a newer award they made up last year. And I was like, well, what will the criteria be? And they said, well, you get to decide what the criteria is. So that's fun. So this year, when I was trying to decide, because it can be a person or a business or anything, actually what came to mind right away, because we're doing the fundraising for the Onalaska Community Center, any of you that have been involved in a major fundraising campaign, you know how stressful that can be to start a campaign like that and just to be nervous about those first donors. And when we started that campaign, the Ultra Federal Credit Union came forward right away with a pretty nice donation. And you see them, all the events that we have around the community, you see Ultra as you know, their name is up there as a sponsor almost every single time. Not only donating money, but also their time for different times when the employees can come and volunteer. So this year I chose Ultra Federal Credit Union for the Mayor Award. And I do really appreciate, there's so many businesses and people, it's impossible to choose, but that's why I chose Ultra Federal Credit Union this year. If you ever wonder, why do you choose somebody? So that wraps up all of those awards that we took home that night. Not going to talk about the 50-50 drawing, but if you want to ask me later. And then item H is the TDS FiberFast Community Award. This event was held out at the Great River Landing. I have the award right here if anybody wants their picture taken with it. But TDS awarded this to our community. They have completed their fiber expansion in Onalaska. So if nothing else, celebrate one of the fiber projects is completed in our community. But we do appreciate, they've been really good to work with. And so that was kind of fun to have that award as well. Okay, keep going down the list. Item I, the Build My Future event. This was held April 30th out at the Omni Center. This is a huge event to promote skilled trades and construction careers. I'm sure you probably heard of it in the media, but 1,400 high school students from around both Wisconsin and Minnesota from over 40 schools were at our own Omni Center. This event is organized by the La Crosse Area Builders, and of course, there are many partners. So this is a huge event that we're very happy to be able to host in Onalaska. But I'm just going to turn it over to Dan if he wants to make any comments about this. I just think this was such a huge event that it really rates commenting about. As I said, I can't talk about every event in Onalaska, but this one pretty much rates up there. Go
I
ahead.
mean,
Dan.
this event really shows the partnerships that's created. You know, you look at what the growth that this thing has had in the short time it's been there. You know, it started just at the Omni. Now we utilize our public works facility. Many of our departments from our city are up there as resources, bringing students and kids through, showing them the different trades that we have. So it's a great showcase for our community, and it was an outstanding event. And the best thing was, less than 2 hours after that event, we were set for another 800-person event that we had that night. So it was a good time. But you know, the staff at the Omni dedicated a lot of time to this, and it's just it shows with the amount of people and things that we have. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Dan. Is there any other staff that would like to comment? Any other staff? No, yes, I know, Larry, that you want to talk. Is there any other staff? Did you want to say anything, Jared? Yep, go ahead, Jared.
Thank you. Yeah, our staff also puts in a lot of time. I want to commend our staff for the various activities they have. They, as Dan stated, they actually come into our public works facility in our addition area, get a safety talk, get their shirts, get their stuff, and then they head out from there and go out to various spots. So if no one has ever, if you haven't been there, you should come to that event next year. It is really neat to see 1,400 eager people trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life and see a whole variety of activities. I mean, it is unbelievable what you'll see in that day.
Thank you for that. Okay, Alderperson Jurassic.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was there for about 4 hours and talking with the kids. The teachers were more enthused than a lot of the kids were. They really loved the idea that they got to bring these kids out and show them all these different aspects of different jobs instead of going to college. I mean, there's everything from welding. They actually got to weld, electrical, plumbing. You see a lot of kids carrying around these toolboxes that they made, and they were just so proud of just holding on to that box and walking around. Talking to the staff there as far as issuing out 1,400 lunches. Everything ran just perfect, and all the shirts and everything like that, they all loved every part about it. I talked to a lot of different students, and they just wished it would have been a 3-day event instead of just a 1-day event. But there's so much stuff going on there that it was almost impossible to see everything. So it's like going to a museum. They're spread out all over the place, but the kids really, really enjoyed it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Sure, go ahead. Alder.
I just wanted to add, my son actually is a freshman at the high school, and I encouraged him to participate in this event, and he left having a really great idea of what he wants to do with his life. So just kind of confirmation that it definitely was helpful. So appreciate everybody's time and effort in putting it together and running it, and thanks.
Thank you for that, Alder Lohendorf. Anybody else want to comment? Okay, thank you. Item J, Onalaska Fire Department request to apply for the Wisconsin DNR grant. Turn it over to Chief Fleddy for that. And there is a memo in your packet regarding the grant application. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. I know this is kind of a strange spot for this in the agenda, but the reason it's in there is for 2 reasons. One, time is running short to apply for the grant. And number 2, we want to make sure we ask for permission and we're doing it the correct way. So we want your permission to apply for this. A little bit of background on this grant. So it's the DNR Forest Fire Protection Grant. We apply for this every single year. Generally, every single year we are successful. It is a 50-50 match grant. In the past, we've gotten fire hose, as far as forest fire hose, wildland fire gear, Class A foam, and all kinds of different equipment. So this is something we've been doing for quite a while. Applications for this grant are coming due on July 1st. So again, the time frame is short for us to ask for permission, get permission for this, and apply for it. Just one of the things we're looking at doing, and probably the only thing we're looking at doing possibly with this grant, is we would like to apply for a skid unit, which is basically a water tank and a fire pump for our UTV. Our current UTV does have a skid unit. It has a pump and a tank on it. However, it's all homemade, kind of home manufactured. And one of the things we realized when we were training is it is tippy. So for a safety factor, we want to get something that's professionally made, designed for the UTV, and make sure we're all safe out there. That unit would cost approximately $9,000. I'm sorry. So half of that would be $4,500. We plan on applying through this with our equipment replacement funds that we generally use every year. And that's kind of the plan that we have. But again, seeking council's permission to apply for the DNR Forest Fire Protection Grant.
And just for clarification, this would be for, we wouldn't receive this until 2026.
Correct. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what is the desire of the council?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Diane Wolf to move forward with the grant application. Is there any discussion? Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think more of this might be more of a finance question. I know, Chief, you mentioned and also in your memo, and thank you for that, that you anticipate funding this in the 2026 Equipment Replacement Fund. Can I assume that this is too small of an amount for capital improvements then?
Yes, that's correct. It would.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? The motion on the floor is to approve the application of the grant. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is recommendation and approval and/or possible action from the following committees, commissions, boards, and officials. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business on the non-consent agenda. Are there any items the councilors would like removed from the consent agenda? Alder Knott.
6P, please.
6, which?
6
P, Papa.
P.
1819-2025.
6P, ordinance 1819-2025. Got it. Are there any other items the councilors would like removed? Larry Jurassic.
Thank you, Mayor. CC and DD.
Okay. CC and okay, the 2 park and rec items. Got it. Okay, are there any other items the councilors would like removed? Okay. Not seeing or hearing any additional removals. I have removed item P, item CC, and item DD. Okay, do we have a motion concerning the consent agenda as adjusted?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as edited, I guess.
Second.
Okay, we'll have a motion by Diane Wolf and a second by Kathy Lohendorf so that she can have her first official second at her first official council meeting. And the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
I will abstain.
Okay, the consent agenda has been approved with one abstention. And look at the room, it just got empty. I think it was because Kathy made that second. They all ran out the door. They're like, oh, she's gonna start seconding things. We're out of here. Okay, so non-consent agenda, recap of the items pulled from the consent agenda. We'll start there. The first is coming from the administrative committee where Stephen Knott is the chair. Item P, ordinance 1819-2025. I'll turn it over to you, Stephen.
Sure. This is to create section 11.02.35 of Title 11 of the ordinance, Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to the hemp-derived cannabinoid and synthetic cannabinoid products. Was not available to attend that committee when they met last week. However, I did go over the minutes. And I absolutely will support the approval of this, but I needed to, I guess, state some why and some facts that might not be readily known. So these products obviously have an intoxicating effect. I think I can show there's several articles coming out now. They're showing that the younger generations are actually moving away from alcohol to these types of products, and they're doing that for a reason. I've actually studied this for many years, starting when it first was decriminalized. Well, this would have been marijuana, not these products, but marijuana decriminalized in Massachusetts, and having to deal with that there when I was on a federal installation on what that meant. But so I'm going to give, I guess, a comparison. I think it's important that we at least have a standard that's equal to alcohol. In the case of alcohol, our bodies actually have a natural ability to be able to cleanse the blood, which is what alcohol affects, which is why if somebody were to, say, go on a binger and down a 6-pack the night before, be getting in bed by 11 o'clock, by the time they show up to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, you would not be able to test that they even had had any alcohol the night before. That is not the case with THC. Understand that there's limited amounts of this, but it must be enough to be intoxicating or the young folks wouldn't be going to it. THC actually affects fatty tissue, and there is no natural ability of our bodies, no mechanism exists to cleanse rapidly THC from our bodies. It instead can stay for 30 days, even up to 60 days, depending on the individual. And each time you continue to consume a THC-related product, you're going to keep adding to that. And again, a good example of that is, unlike the test in that example I gave with alcohol, if somebody has enough THC in their system, I can test them 30 days later and still come up with a positive, unlike with alcohol. So, I mean, this is a situation where it's actually affecting the brain, because one of the biggest areas of fatty tissue in our bodies is in the brain, and brains don't develop fully, depending on who you listen to, until age either 25 or 26. So 21 to me is actually a minimum, although our state legislature has decided this is a product that can be sold. So we're probably limited to that. If it was up to me, I'd actually limit it to age 26 and above for that very reason. But I guess if they're old enough to go fight for the country and they want to permanently impede the development of their brain starting at age 21, I guess they have the right to make that decision. But I will support this. 21 to me is reasonable. It's in line with alcohol. And I think that to me would be a minimum standard.
We probably should have made a motion to get it on the floor before we started the discussion. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't think we did we?
Yeah, I'm going to move to approve. Yeah.
Sorry about that. That was.
Sorry,
my
yeah,
bad.
I will not
got
have turned on that,
sidetracked.
but yep. You're
Is
agreed.
there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Stephen Knott, second by Mike Milky to approve ordinance 1819-2025. So the motion is now on the floor to approve. Is there any other discussion? Alder Jurassic?
Thank you, Mayor. I come at it from a slightly different aspect, being in the medical field for as long as I was in the military and seeing the effects of marijuana that it does to on individuals. It's really hard to say that, when I was growing up, it was 18 to drink. And the reason behind that was because if you could go to the military, you should be able to drink. But reality is reality, and I fully support the 21-year-old items. I don't know what the penalty is going to be on these, but when I was growing up, if you could get a fake ID, yeah, you were usually in there 15, 16, 17 years old trying to buy alcohol. So I hope that the penalties for this trying to get in here earlier are higher. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from anyone? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve ordinance 1819-2025. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll continue on with the items pulled. So that will bring us to the Park and Rec items pulled. Item CC, approval of placing the splash pad in the proposed expansion area. Alder Jurassic.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd just like to hear some more comments from
Can
Park and Rec.
can you start by putting a motion on the floor, preferably, probably the one coming forward from Park and Rec?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I fully support this, and I would say we go through with it. Oh, we're wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Amanda, did you want to comment before a motion is put on the floor?
I don't think we need a motion tonight. So I think that this
was a little bit prematurely placed on the park board agenda.
Okay,
It's hard for us to approve the placement of a splash pad on land we don't own. And so I think that, there are talks about putting a splash pad in the area of a proposed expansion of Dash Park. But I don't know that we're in a place where we should be approving that at this point, just given that, that we don't own the land.
okay.
And so I think that if they want to talk about the idea generally, I have no problem with that. It's on the agenda. I just don't know that we should be approving it. If that
Okay.
makes sense.
So,
My whole question was that.
okay, so we'll just take no action and move on? Or do we even need to table it? We can just take no action.
I think we can just take no action and move on. If there are staff, if there are council members that would like to comment
Yeah,
on it or
okay.
ask questions, I'm open to that. It's on the agenda,
Okay.
but I just don't think we're at a place for approval at the moment, if that
Okay,
makes sense.
so we won't put a motion on the floor. If someone has a general comment, I'll open it for general comments then, if that's okay with
That's
the
what my general
counselor.
comment
Okay,
was.
Alder Wolf, you seem as though you want to say something.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, going forward after tonight, I just want to confirm for all of us in the room and also for in the minutes, I just want to confirm going forward, this will eventually come back to council for approval of the placement of it?
Possibly. So this is a complicated issue. In the sense that we have somebody who is, developing private land with the idea of giving that land to the city. And so, if private funds are used for the purpose of that, then, the placement of that would not necessarily be on the council's purview. The acceptance of the land would be under the council's purview. If the city were to participate in the project financially, that would fall under the city's purview.
What was the last part?
If the city were to contribute financially, but there's a lot of moving parts to this. And so it's also very difficult for us to expend money on private land through a competitive bidding process, for a project that would be on land that at the moment we don't own. And so we're working through all of those sort of different options and legalities at the moment. And so, I think the intent is that there will be a splash pad at the expansion of Dash Park. And so if that's something that you want to discuss, please go ahead and discuss that. I just don't think we can approve it tonight because we don't have any authority over it, if that makes sense. And I'll defer to Rick.
Okay, Rick, go ahead. Rick Niemer.
I was simply going to add on to, yes, this is private property. If it's going to be developed and there are applicable ordinances or codes that it triggers, then they'll have to go through those processes. Will that come to planning and council? Potentially. It just depends on what they want to develop the land for. I think it's, evident that there's a potential that this could be an expansion of Dash Park. But again, until it becomes public property, it'll have to go through the process of development of private property.
Okay, I think Alder Lohendorf had, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I thought we went to Rick and I thought you were done. Sorry, go ahead, Alder Wolf, no problem.
So, and the reason why I ask is that I look at our ordinance 2.02.15 powers of common council, and it's the second sentence, and it says, except as otherwise provided by law, the common council shall have the management and control of the city property. Now, having said that, is there the potential that this would be gifted to us and then become city property?
Correct, that is a potential.
Okay,
We also may purchase the property. That could be a potential.
okay.
We could do nothing with the prop. There's a lot of potentials out there.
Okay, and I think, I don't know about anyone else sitting here, but I know when council members and met down at Dash Park a year ago, within the last 2 years, that's the last I heard of it. So unless other people have been kept informed or whatever, we don't know what's going on. So it would really be helpful if maybe, that we had some type of a discussion or to kind of bring us up to speed, like where are we at? Because,
Well, and that is the issue. This is private property right now. And so what they decide to do with their private property, until they submit an official plan, it's still in potential for development stages right now by the
Okay.
private owner. And so until those plans are submitted for approval and development, it's speculation right now as to what would happen with that property.
Okay, and I think one last thing is that there was a lot of concern in the last year about placing an item in Dash Park and it ended up at the Great River Landing. And there was a lot of concern about safety and such. So this is the number one thing point that I'm coming from is the safety, because the last thing I want to be called is a hypocrite, because I was very vocal, as were a few others on this council. And number one, whatever I'm saying here tonight is no way trying to steal the thunder or put a cloud over the project, or I certainly appreciate what community members are proposing. So I don't want that, any comments that I speak tonight to have it viewed as that I'm negative or I'm against it. But I just think there's a lot more that we need to know. And I think I was just kind of, I just assumed it was on tonight's agenda because the length and depth and breadth that it was discussed at Parks, and they all approved it. So it's kind of a little bit confused here. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Kathy, Alder Lohendorf was next. Did you, or your thing was saying?
As much as I would love to have a splash park right down the street from my house, I share Diane's concern with potential safety concerns with potentially unsupervised children, especially over in that super busy area. Sorry, Amanda.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Amanda and then Alder Benash is next.
Okay, so obviously there are no final designs at this point, and those will all be before you. Should they get to that level, we would have a rezoning we would have to do. We would have, likely a site plan review process that we would have to do. Loosely, the idea is sort of to add bathrooms to this expansion area, to add, like a pergola sheltered type area and a very small splash pad. And so I know when we think splash pads, we all have very different ideas of what a splash pad entails. So this would be like just a very small sort of natural area that may have some bubblers coming up with some water. So that's not to say it won't attract children, but I don't think it's going to be competing with our pool, or it's going to be a destination, right? It would be just a very small area that would have, some fun water relief during the summer months.
Would love a water feature in the neighborhood. That'd be nice.
Okay, Alder Benash was next.
Well, this evening it says approval of placing a splash pad in the proposed expansion. Somebody had to come up with the idea of approval. And I'm not sure who it was that stated it this way. So somewhere along the line, somebody said, this is what we want to do with this area. I'm new on the council now, but when I see something like this, it already seems to me like somebody's mind has been made up about this. So that's what confuses me about, here we talk about development. I have no idea what this development is going to be, who's going to be responsible for it, what's going on in this particular development area, how we're going to end up in possession of it, and what are we going to do with it when we get it. So there's quite a few questions that need to be answered, I think, before we come to any kind of agreement on what's going to happen in this area. So it just seems premature and a bit confusing.
Okay, we'll let our city administrator address that.
And I can help a little bit with that too. When this was originally talked about with the potential for development, there were a couple of different avenues that it could have taken. And when it went onto the parks agenda, it was still a little bit uncertain as to which direction it was going to take. But with the possibility of one direction, and I'm being a little bit cryptic only because those are conversations that were had, and ultimately it was decided to go a different direction, which leads us here to tonight with Amanda recommending it doesn't need approval for this evening because it's going to go through private development. Those plans, again, presumably will be submitted through the city for approval at some point in time, whatever they ultimately decide they want to do with regards to the development in this area. So that's why there might be some confusion as to why it's worded in a particular way, because there were some different options that were considered originally in regards to how this was going to move forward.
More question.
Okay, yep, just, hold on. So I was waiting to see if Alderman Ash had a response to that, but he seems like
No,
he's.
I've already spoken to the city administrator about the situation.
Okay, we'll go with, Alder Lohendorf and then we'll go to Alder Knott next. Go ahead, Kathy.
I actually had just a zoning question, because I know up until a couple of years ago, there were houses on those two lots. And they look like they're owned by the same company. Do we know, have they been rezoned yet, or are they still residential?
I believe they're still residential. They'll have to be rezoned public. Or, I mean, likely public if it's going to ultimately be a park.
Got it.
So, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Alder Knott?
Yeah, I understand we're not going to take action on this, but I do want to express that I do still have concerns in general about using Dash Park as a location for child-specific recreation resources, especially if it's a resource that, whether intended or not, will encourage, as Kathy mentioned, people just dropping their kids off and leaving them. And this is an area that has roads on 3 sides, one of which is a high traffic area, multi-lane high traffic area. I see risks involved in this, that if this does continue to come forward to us in the future, those concerns are going to have to be mitigated, at least for me anyway.
Okay, thank you. I think we've heard from everyone except Alder Milky. Did you want to comment?
I guess I just don't want to get lost. That this is something that is cool for the city. Obviously, maybe this isn't the best spot. I know with the Rocking Sunfish, this conversation came up, was it 3 years ago, with the safety concerns. And so I understand what we're all talking about. But I do also think it's something that is exciting for the city to be looking at this. So I do appreciate the work that's been put into this. But I do also, understand with all the other counselors talking tonight, kind of where our concerns come in. So I guess that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any last comments from the counselors before we move on? Everyone's good? Okay, Alder Jurassic, let's move on to item DD, approval of the Omni Center annual report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the report as it stands. The comments I had on it is.
Let's get a second first.
Oh, second.
Thank you. Motion by Larry Jurassic, second by Stephen Knott to approve the Omni Center annual report.
Right.
Okay, now discussion, Alder Jurassic.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's okay. Yep.
Yeah, the future of that whole concept over there with the building and everything is something that is really gonna add to the city. I fully support the Pathway 3. It's basically the largest one, because I don't want to see us getting into this project and then 15 years down the line, I wish we would have gone bigger. That's my concept on it, but this is a project that's going to be a year or so down the line, but thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to have any comments or questions regarding the Omni Center annual report? Not seeing or hearing, the motion on the floor is to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we'll return to the non-consent agenda regular items. Item 8, the Finance Committee. Mike Milky.
Thank you, Mayor. The following is a list of the monies expended since the last common council meeting dated April 8th, 2025. That total is $4,449,620.53. I'd like to ask our finance director, Sabrina, if she has any comments on this.
Let's put a motion on the floor first.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mike Milky. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic to approve the vouchers for this month. Discussion.
So in front of you, excuse me, is a list of all the monies that were expended. It is a little higher than normal. Part of that is due to the fact that we bought a fire truck. So that was 1.1 million of the 4 million. And then also we had multiple bond interest payments that came due in the month of April, the end of April, beginning of May. And then just some of the Board of Public Works projects are getting closer to finish, one down the street at the community center. So
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments by the counselors? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 9, Administrative Committee, Alder Knott.
This is 9A ordinance 1815-2025 to amend section 2.04.15 of Title II of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to the Community Development Authority. This did pass out of committee, and I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Alder Wolf to approve this ordinance, and we'll refer to our city attorney for additional commentary.
Thank you. The only reason this was pulled off of the consent agenda, which staff pulled it off, was because when we were reviewing it after it was approved at ANF, we realized that it had an error in it. At one point during the, many back and forth kind of between CDA and the different departments that reviewed this, it was noted that there's actually a fair amount of regulation of the Community Development Authority statutorily. And so we're not actually able to change as many things with this particular committee as we are others. And one of those things we're not able to change is actually the term limit. And so those term limits are set by statute at 4 years. And so the one that went to ANF had them still at 2 years by error. So we have corrected that, which is why it's not on the consent agenda tonight.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments or questions? Alder Knott?
These changes are mostly administrative to bring more clarity, I think. Yeah. So.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing or hearing any other questions. The motion on the floor is to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 10 is the report from our city administrator. I'll turn it over to you.
There we go. I handed out earlier my monthly report. Again, I won't read it to you, just touch on some of the highlights. The community center continues to move forward. If you've been by it recently, you'll notice that the exterior signage is up. And if you've been inside, you'll notice the interior signage is up as well. Parking lot has been poured as well or laid. So things are definitely moving along. We had new Alder orientation just recently. So we had an opportunity to go over the council handbook, among other items, with both Alder Benash and Alder Lohendorf. If you noticed last week, part of the EV charging station has been installed, the part that goes underneath the parking lot. They trenched in some wiring, and the remaining portions of it will be installed within the next week or so. It's already been mentioned, last week was Public Service Recognition Week. I echo the mayor's sentiments in regards to thanking everybody for their service, including council members as well too, because you're part of that public service as well. We had some fun activities last week for employees, and everything was well attended for participation. You've heard about the culture assessment that continues to be ongoing. Neil Zigerlicki with Full Court Vision, he is doing this assessment for the city. He has met with the department heads as a group, and then he's now doing individual meetings with them as well. And next week, he'll be meeting with other staff from each department as a group to kind of go over things as well too. The fitness center, that was part of the approval in the budget for this year. Happy to report that the equipment will be delivered next Wednesday. So by the end of the day on Wednesday, we should be up and running in the new fitness room downstairs. Tomorrow I have a meeting with the Grow Solar individuals. They want to plan a power hour in Onalaska. Their power hours are just one of those sessions that they hold themselves where they invite people to come and listen and get more information regarding solar, not only in the city of Onalaska, but throughout the county. And so they're looking for a location to hold one of their power hours. And so I'm going to meet with them tomorrow and just have a conversation about what that might look like. Something we'll talk about in a minute, but I just wanted to highlight the Onalaska Community Night. Again, I don't want to steal Mike's thunder, so I'm going to wait just a little bit, and we'll get to that in a moment. The donkey basketball event was held recently. That was on the 16th. 4 teams competed, and I would say the Park and Rec team, I guess I would call it, was the one that won. They were the big victors and got the coveted donkey trophy. So that was fun, but there were other things as well too. There were bounce houses, food, beverages, raffles, 50-50, things that went to the All Abilities Playground, and of course the donkeys. So another fun event. And then the last item there is my events for last month. Thank you.
Thank you. You can just continue on
Turn it
there.
down, okay. Let's see. The agreement with the Onalaska School District. So I was recently contacted a couple weeks ago by their interim superintendent, Fran Finko. So the Northern Hills Elementary School, part of their playground is technically city-owned property, but they've been utilizing it for purposes of school playground for many, many years. They approached the city because they do have some safety concerns for some of the students when they're outside during recess. And so what they would like to do is they would like to erect a fence around the playground area. They would like to include within the fencing the area that is also city-owned property. And so they just approached and wanted to know what might be able to be done in order to get that accomplished. So we had some conversations. You'll see attached to the agenda was an agreement that our city attorney, Amanda Jackson, put together. There have been some conversations. They have the school district has reviewed it. They have asked for a couple of modifications, which we'll get to in a moment. One thing to point out, though, if the fence is installed that incorporates the city property, there will be areas that have gates that will not be locked, particularly after school hours, so the public will still have access to it. It's also important to note that there's a ball field that's located in this playground area, and the Park and Rec Department does utilize that ball field for programming as well. So it's important that we do have access to it as well as the public. In a conversation just today at the OBA lunch, there was some further conversation between Dan Wick and Fran Finko and myself. There will be a larger gate as well, so vehicles can get through, which was important for the Park and Rec to make sure that they can get their vehicles to prep the field whenever it's being utilized for programming. So that's just kind of a background of how we got to where we are. A couple of the things they would like to see different in the agreement. They would like to see a 25-year lease. The one that's been drafted is basically year to year for a one-year term that automatically renews. There is a provision in there for a dollar amount. As you can see, though, it's offsetting, so no actual money would be exchanging. They have requested that that be set at $1. If it is a 25-year lease, they are okay with a provision that on 90 days notice, that lease can be terminated. And at that point, then they could either remove the fence, leave it. That's something we'd have to work out, but it's in the lease as well. The provision about making the property accessible to the public at all times is in the lease as it currently stands. So again, that is something that is contained in there as well. Amanda, I'll have you jump in on anything else you feel is that I've missed out on.
No, I don't think so. I guess the only thing I would say is that right now the lease is set at an annual rental rate of $4,000. However, we are giving them an offset for the $4,000. So it ends up being not neutral. In that, if they maintain the property, are responsible for, mowing any of it, they needs to be mowing, making sure there's not invasive species and things like that, then we would basically give them a $4,000 offset. I would rather do it that way than $1 a year, just because I think that there's some consideration being given on both sides. But with respect to their other changes, I don't necessarily have an issue with those.
Okay, let's talk to Sabrina. Let's get our staff input here first. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Did you at all consider adding like CPI in for that 4,000, even though there would be an offset? We have so many agreements with the school district that have never increased.
I mean, that would be up to the council if they want to do that. We could do that.
We certainly could. I guess my thought process was being that there's not going to be any money actually exchanging hands, but I understand where you're coming from as well.
Alder Knott?
Yeah, a lot of legalese in this agreement. It's probably something we've already thought of. I just want to verify that this makes somehow clear that we're never at risk of adverse possession.
You can adverse possess city land.
You cannot.
Nope.
Okay, good to go.
I have a question, Rick. Was it discussed with this lease agreement, if they're committed to it long-term, why wouldn't they want to just purchase it?
We did not go into the topic of purchasing the property. I did ask if there was renewed interest in talking about French Road and this property, and I was told that there was not at this time. The other part of that is because we do utilize it for Park and Rec activities, having that part of it under city control, essentially, there is a benefit to having it that way as well.
Alder Benish?
Just a question about the insurance, doesn't the school board, aren't they held harmless if something happens? So we're asking them to have $1 million policy when in fact, doesn't the school have a hold harmless agreement that they're not responsible for somebody being injured?
Well, the school board individually as members perhaps, but the school district can be held liable for a variety of things. I mean, they have insurance. I mean, we did talk about the insurance policy. Fran had no problems providing.
Well, I've gone through this with them before, and they said that they aren't liable for something that the school does. So that's why if we ask them to have $1 million policy and nobody has access to it, why bother?
Yeah, and I too, my understanding is that they can be held responsible in certain circumstances. There may be exceptions, of course. They did review the agreement and they were okay with the insurance provision, is my understanding. I suspect that they already have the insurance in place and probably actually even cover this area as well, I'm guessing, just because they've been utilizing it for so long. But again, that's my speculation on that.
Alder Jurassic?
That would be needed for if Park and Rec or having an event there. Wouldn't that cover that?
Could you say that a little bit more clearly? I couldn't quite understand what you said.
Yeah, I was saying that the insurance would be for in the events of Park and Rec having an event there and somebody getting injured, then it wouldn't be the school, it'd be Park and Rec.
I mean, we also have our own insurance that would
Right,
cover
that's what
park
I'm
and
saying.
rec events. I mean, we are talking land here, and so I'm just, I'm not saying they couldn't have like a hole that they didn't maintain and that caused liability, but I mean, the risk is fairly low with it being unimproved.
Yep.
That we're likely going to deal with an insurance issue, but not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I think the $1 million policy that they're gonna be, is gonna be minimal anyways, on price wise, so.
I have a quick question for Dan, just to get the staff questions out of the way. So the current agreement would allow all of the current park and rec programs to continue there as they currently do?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other thing for park and rec wise that you're concerned about with this?
No.
So does that. Okay, let's see, Mike Milky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. On this picture, do we have an idea? It says around the playground equipment, like where this fence would be going. I know my children all go to school here, or have, and the playground can be out in the middle of this field as well, kind of where we see that 511 mark, above soccer field. So I'm just wondering, do we have an idea of where exactly this is going, this fence? Is it the whole perimeter?
My understanding is it would be at the perimeter inside the sidewalk. It would encompass the backstop in the ball field. So it would not, it would go around the backside of the backstop is my understanding. But otherwise, my understanding would be on basically the inside of the sidewalk.
Okay,
It
so
would
it's,
be-
so they're considering the playground, the whole area.
Correct.
That's
yeah.
what I just wanted to be sure. I wasn't sure on that. So thank you so much.
And you bring up a good point. If we don't come to an agreement on this, they're still going to put up the fence. They're just going to put it on their property line, which is going to be about in the middle of, that red line. So, that's what they indicated that they would do if we can come to an agreement. So.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I just have so much extra time. I'm so boring that I listen in on the school board meeting the second and fourth Monday of every month, even though my daughter graduated in 2010. But it's something I've been doing since like 1995. So I'm still a taxpayer and I care very much about, especially as much as I was involved with the Onalaska School District for many years. It's very near and dear to my heart and I still know a lot of people. So when Rick talked about, they did mention last night that, at worst case scenario, yes, they would put it on their own property, on their own land. The reason why they came up with a 25-year number was at least they got advice that that's about the average life of a fence. So that's why they're looking for a 25-year. And they did go ahead and speak last night about the $1 a year and some of the other things that Rick had talked about. And I'm very happy to see that we have under alterations and improvements where the contract or the agreement says, and that such fence shall not limit access for the public to the premises. One school board member was very outspoken, very verbal about how very important that was. And a second one, totally agreed. So I'm very happy to see that. So I just have a couple other questions or concerns, or I mean, I guess more questions. Do we know, like, what is the square footage of this? Any idea or rough guesstimate?
If you give me a moment, I can look up the appraisal that was done on this property. That might give us an
Might not be
idea as to the size of
yeah.
this.
And secondly, Amanda and or Sabrina, how would the quote unquote offset work? When you say an offset?
I mean, basically, we would give them a credit for the amount due, provided they're still continuing to maintain it appropriately.
So does that mean that we just kind of keep a little ledger and they kept, this, there was this, but a year later, it's like you did a good job. So then we just strike it out. And I mean, is that what we're talking about, offsets? Or something more sophisticated? I don't know.
How would you manage that, Madam Finance Director?
I would ask legal if they are maintaining.
I
if
guess
they
I would
are
ask,
maintaining.
who is maintaining it now?
They're maintaining it now. And so, I mean, in that sense, nothing would change. We would just expect that they continue to maintain it. I mean, I think that we would automatically apply the credit unless our Park and Rec department came to us and said, hey, it doesn't look like they're maintaining this property anymore, at which point we'd probably first have a conversation with them. And then, if it became an issue, then we would bill them the $4,000.
So Dan, our guys they drag the field and paint lines on it, or is it not used that way?
Yeah, we maintain the ball field. We're dragging the fields, lining the fields if we need it.
But
It's our
not mowing.
It's our bases, it's our equipment on the field, but they do all of the mowing.
They do all the mowing. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry. and
Go ahead,
so,
Alderwoman.
before I see the one thing that I continue, and I think this council has been somewhat vocal in the past that, the city of Onalaska and the Onalaska School District, we've had good relationships in the past, and I think it's imperative that we try to maintain them. I'm just, I would like to have entertained maybe some land swap or something that we had talked about earlier, but I guess I would support this going forward. And if there's those items that Rick, that you had mentioned about possibly either making amendments or whatever, if people have the wherewithal to do so. Thank you.
I do.
Go
understand.
ahead,
It's
Rick.
0.84 acres,
Point what?
0.84 acres.
Oh, so it's almost a full acre.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot more property than what it looks like up on the map.
Mhm.
Okay, do the counselors have any more comments?
Hmm.
Alder Lohendorf?
Would it be otherwise developable land?
Yes.
We could make 2 lots out of it, actually.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes. Alder Jurassic.
Thank you, Mayor. At one time, there was a discussion about property that's next to the Omni Center, that is, school property.
Mhm.
Is there a possibility of swapping this for that? Expand the Omni Center area?
No.
In my understanding, they use that for various sporting events and various activities over there. So I don't know if there would be any appetite for that.
Okay.
I believe it's also under DNR restrictions, and so it couldn't be developed beyond what it is.
All right. Thank you.
I guess one of my things I'm thinking, like with the 4,000 even, like that's kind of creating an unnecessary administrative thing over something that's not really needed. So I'm wondering if there's a simpler solution, especially since we're already doing a part with the ball field dragging and bases, and they're already doing a part, and we want to be a good partner. So that way, I wish we could find a simple solution. I'm a little less comfortable with the 20-year commitment because, we already have been looking at land remnants and trying to make long-term resolutions to land remnants, and this doesn't feel like a good solution. In a long-term view, definitely want them to use it and not to put the fence in the middle of the ball field. Definitely want them to be able to use it, but those are just a couple of my thoughts as we're discussing this. Anyone else? Alder Wolf.
Thank you again. Just one quick follow-up. So regarding the land and splitting the lots, you know, that parcel into two lots, how realistic would that be? I don't know if that's for Katie or illegal.
To divide the land?
Well, we talked about that. There could be two lots.
Yeah, so that would be a CSM that the city would approve to subdivide the parcel. On a different note, one of the issues that we will have to work through is that if this is a fence that encompasses two properties, that presents challenges because there's not a structure on our property, and so the fence height would only be 4 feet. And I'm not sure that the school district's aware of that, which might also make it less desirable for them to fence this in. And so maybe further conversations should be had.
When we talk about that, we could split it. I mean, are we talking about that it's buildable?
Yes.
It is buildable.
It is buildable. It is developable. You could do duplexes, you could do small scale, single family residential.
Mhm.
Is it really that big? It feels like it's smaller than that.
Well,
Because when you figure the offset from property line in the front and property line in the back.
they would be wide, so they
So
wouldn't
wide
be
and narrow.
long. Yep, so we would divide it in half and they would be wider parcels. But if you look on the map up there, and I can zoom in a little, I mean, look at how small our residential lots are, you know, adjacent to this school.
True.
Right over here compared to how much land that encompasses. I mean, you would not have big backyards, but you could definitely, you know, divide that.
You have a school in your backyard.
Well, and at the end of the day, I guess being elected officials, you know, one thing that was drilled into me when I first started here in 2003 on this council was protect our tax base. You know, and we continually are talking about, like someone mentioned under public input tonight, about, you know, the whole thing about, you know, following what we have set up, and I can't remember, but, you know, budgets. And if it's something that's buildable and that we can get it on, you know, someone comes in and develops and get it on the tax rolls, I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know. So I just want to put that out there. So I may not be so keen to approve it at this point.
Alder Benash.
I see this as a plus for the city. I mean, working with the school board, children, this school is going to be around a long time. And besides, if you start to build houses there, you've already got a ball field. We're already experiencing that at the American Legion with the ball field next to all those houses. So if you got a ball field and you're going to build houses there, you're going to have balls hitting houses. So it's a schoolyard. Kids use it. Park and rec. I mean, to me, it seems like a slam dunk. Just go ahead and go with it.
Okay, let me ask our city administrator, what is the time? Because this is our first look at this for like kind of vetting out some of our concerns and questions. What is their timeline on thinking that we're going to answer this question?
They plan on installing it this summer, June, July-ish. That timeframe is when they plan on installing.
Okay. Do you think that we could have some more time to like answer some of these questions?
And certainly we could. I mean, again, too, it's, they're asking to use our property essentially. And so, you know, when we get back to them, we get back to them. Now, having said that, of course, you know, I can nail down more specific time frame because if they do decide that they're just going to proceed with it and do it on their property line, you know, then of course it may be too late at that point in time.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've ordered the materials yet, because obviously where they put it will impact how much they order. So, but again, I certainly think that there is some time. I just don't know how much time.
Right. Well, I mean, I think some of the concerns would relate more to the length of time commitment to the fence. You know, some of those concerns, because there's nothing imminent. But then like the concern about the height of the fence would be pretty important, right? Okay, Alder Milky, we'll go around this way and then we'll come back and then we'll try to wrap it up.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Alderman Ash. I feel like this is a slam dunk, but one thing that this council has always talked about since I've been doing this is public safety is one of our biggest things. I mean, installing this fence and securing the property is almost number one public safety. I mean, I know as a parent of students at this school, I know students have left the property and gone to their houses or apartments across the street here. So to put this in is really, one of our number one things is public safety. So that's, I guess, my first point. Also, the relationship with the school board and even for future negotiations with this property and other properties, I don't think this hurts it. I think it only, I guess, promotes that we are with them and we are a great partner. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Lowendarf.
I actually had a couple of questions and a comment. Amanda, you mentioned the fence height. It's 4 feet, right? Because of being on the street?
So for our property, that would be the fence height.
Yeah, so if they lease our property and they go up next to the sidewalk, it
And
would
they can't go adjacent, so there's a 2-foot setback, so they can't, they would still need to do that, so it couldn't be right on the sidewalk. But yeah, it would be 2 feet setback and 4 feet would be the max height on our property because it is a separate property.
And then assuming that they're gonna take that fence and go down East Avenue North with it back towards the school, can that also only be 4 feet because it's adjacent to the street? And does the school district know that?
That's where I don't think that the school district likely knows what the requirements are. And so I think we are going to have a conversation with them to sort of discuss what this would look like, which may quite frankly end up with this conversation being moot because they may want to simply keep it on their property because their height ability would be higher. I'm not sure a 4-foot fence will do what they want.
My next question, I think, is for Dan. If they go with a fence, if we don't approve this and they go with a fence 2 feet south of their property line, does that impede our ability to get in there and do what we need to do for Park and Rec?
Well, the field would be lost. We would not have a field to practice on and run programs at if we put it on a property line.
Do we
So
have?
No, I mean, we're short fields right now.
Don't have an alternate, okay.
So.
And then I guess my comment is, I know we don't want to go with a long time frame. I understand the school wants to go with a shorter. I think it would be in our best interest if they bought it, but I think, knowing that they had a lot of money taken from their budgets this year and probably next year, it's most likely just not financially feasible for them right now. That was my comment.
Amanda, if they did own the property, could the fence be higher? And
They
then
would need to merge the properties together, and at that point, yes.
And then how high would it be able to
I
be?
believe 6 feet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Katie. Katie, did you want to say something?
We may have a little bit of flexibility to go above 4, but the front yards, it's supposed to be 4 feet. If we did a site plan, we could potentially increase that to up to 6 foot high, but there's additional steps that have to do in addition to what this lease agreement would be. So it's not a clear answer because we would have to do some review in addition to that. But merging them, yes, they could automatically go up to 6 foot in height because this would be considered the rear or side yard of their property, provided they give us that 2-foot setback from the sidewalks on both sides.
Thank you for that. Okay. Kathy,
you,
were
Mayor.
you done?
I just had one more proposal. I wonder if instead of having a $4,000 annual and then a $4,000 offset, if we just impose an annual maintenance fee or something like that, if it's not maintained, and just leave the other financial aspect out of it, so it's easier on the books.
Okay, thank you. All right, Alder Jurassic.
Thank you, Mayor. The only question I have is the east side, is that going to be also fenced? Because we got a little bit of property there that's part of ours too.
My understanding is they're going to be enclosing all the area that would be considered the playground area. And so my understanding is that that would be included as well.
So all the way over to the parking lot then.
Again, my understanding, yes.
Okay.
I haven't seen any plans or anything. I'm just going off from what was relayed. Mhm.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are you good, Larry? Okay, back to you, Alder Knott. Did you have any more questions or comments?
I support the agreement.
Thank you. Alder Wolf, did you have any? Okay, Alder Benesh. Okay, so what is the desire of the council? How should we proceed?
Isn't this going to be rewritten?
I mean,
You can move to approve with some changes that have been discussed here if you'd like.
I'd like to do that. I'd like to move to approve with the changes that we've discussed
okay,
tonight.
let's list them off though then, Kathy.
So We already had in there about, that we can get in. I think, I guess I don't know what a time frame would, what a good time frame would be for the lease.
Should we maybe have Amanda, do you have like an interpretation of the discussion?
So what I would propose is a 20-year lease that we could terminate with 90 days notice, that the city will look at mechanisms for a maintenance fee or, some consideration for the agreement, in the revised proposal. I think that's the two main changes that we were looking at.
Okay, does that sound like the motion that you wanted to make?
Yes.
Okay, that is the
you.
motion. Just trying to move us forward.
Second.
Okay, that motion was by Kathy. It's been seconded by Stephen Knott. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? I'm not seeing any discussion. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve the lease with the changes being that it would be a 20-year lease with a 90-day notice to terminate. And there will be some revision to the wording regarding the maintenance to be determined to try to just make it easier to administer. So the motion is to approve and the voting is going to be by roll call, only because I think it's mixed. So I'll have Joanne do the voting.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Mike Milky,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Abstain.
Kathy Lowendorf. Aye. Jim Benash.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. There were 5 yes votes with 1 abstention. So the motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for that discussion. Item C, discuss and set time for the special common council meeting to discuss a budgeting strategy going into the 2026 budgeting process. Rick?
Thank you, Mayor. In past years, there has been probably what we've referred to as a goals meeting before we start the budgeting process, to have some discussion with council and staff in regards to things that the council wants to see. I changed the wording just slightly to more of a strategy for a couple of reasons. One, maybe in past times, there might have been starting out with a surplus, which is not going to be the case when we start out the budgeting process, likely. And then the second piece of it is, as you may recall, late last year, put together a group to talk about city funding alternatives as a work group, met every other week to have some discussions. We discussed a lot of things. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of that because what the goal is to have some recommendations, some ideas that came out of those meetings at this strategy meeting. And so we got to figure out what is going to be a sustainable way for the city when it comes to funding challenges, whether that includes alternative or new funding and mechanisms, service provisions, where we're at right now, just what does that look like? And so more of a strategy meeting to discuss. So again, much like our goals meetings in the past, that's what this is going to be like, but just maybe with an expanded conversation this year in regards to what are some things that the council wants to see moving forward when it comes to some of these items. So looking at the dates, last year we had it on June 17th. This year, talked with department heads. The week of June 16th was the one that kind of jumped out as the most obvious. After some conversation, June 16th and 19th, Monday and Thursday, were the 2 dates. The Thursday date, there is one department head who was unavailable to be here in person. Said they could be in Zoom, but they will be off or not available that day, I should say. Otherwise, June 16th, the only concern about that date is at 6:30. If there are any requests, there will be a BOZA meeting that day. But if no requests are submitted, then that would be canceled. So, but those are the 2 dates where we had the most available from the staff perspective. And so I'll leave it up to council to decide what date you want to do. Last year, we started at 5 p.m. So ideally, at least at 5 p.m. would be good. Obviously, from staff's perspective, earlier the better. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, did you get some feedback on those dates? Or you don't know?
From department heads?
Yeah, or
Oh, from council, I'm sorry. There were a couple that said the 19th worked. There were a couple that said the 16th worked. I know you had indicated that 16th worked better.
Yeah,
But the 19th you could make work as well. So it
okay.
was kind of a mixed response.
Okay, so where is the council at? Which date is preferable, the 16th or the 19th?
16th for me, 19th is my anniversary, so.
16th for me also.
19th, yes, or 19th, no?
Sent out the email. I moved 3 things that week, so I could do the 19th and then the 16th came up today, so. I'm not moving things back.
Is there anybody that can't make it on the 19th? So you're, okay, so we're gonna go with the 19th. Okay. The 19th at 5 o'clock? Can anybody do it earlier than 5 o'clock? Can we,
I'm flexible on that day.
4 o'clock?
I'm flexible on that day. Yep. You want to go at 10 a.m., I can do it then too.
Can we do it at 4 o'clock on the 19th?
I won't be able to make it at 4. It'll have to be 5.
5
for me.
o'clock, okay.
I can't do it at 4.
5 o'clock on the 19th. Okay, someone make a motion.
I'll make a motion to set the June 2026 budget process meeting for June 19th at 5 PM.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Mike Milky. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic to set the June special common council meeting for June 19th at 5 PM. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. We have a meeting date. Motion passes unanimously. Item D, update on Onalaska Community Night at the Loggers game, July 10th. Rick?
And I'll start with this. This was an idea that came up not too long ago, but I'm going to turn over to Alder Milky as he has kind of been the driving force behind this one. So.
All right. Thank you, Rick. So yes, what we're doing is in some meetings with Chris Cadell and his staff over at the Loggers, we were talking about a night for the city of Onalaska to be recognized, and a few different ways we're going to be doing this is one, we're going to have somebody from the city throwing out a first pitch. We also are going to have our new Onalaska superintendent as another first pitch, somebody throwing this out. We also are looking to get the OHS students, some from the choir program, to be singing the national anthem. Another great tie-in, thanks to Dan Wick and his team, is in relation to our youth baseball teams and softball teams, to get them on the field for some recognition during that national anthem. Also, we're given word that they will provide free admission to any players, wearing their jersey. So something pretty cool where you can get the kids in to this, event for free. Another neat thing that we're looking at doing is promoting with some Onalaska businesses. I've been in discussion with some people and looking into this now, but basically having some businesses at the front of the ballpark for a pretty low fee. Also being able to get 10 free tickets to hand out to either their staff or anybody in the community. So realistically, it's just a cool event that we're looking to set up, looking to recognize some of the neat things that we provide in the city and also our youth sports teams to go along with baseball. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, we don't need any action on this.
I don't believe any actions
Okay.
necessary, no.
And just for information, I will not be there. That's no one from the start.
What time is that at, Mike?
Believe the game was 7. Was it 6 or 7 that night?
35.
6:35, sorry.
Was this going to be a party deck or not?
Everybody buys their own tickets to go to the event. This is just going to be more of a community where people can come and show their support for the community of Onalaska.
So you
So
won't have a reserved party?
there won't be any reserved seating, no.
Yeah, we have some other things planned too. I know my son is going to be doing a trick that I once did at the field. So that's something interesting. So if anyone's curious what that is, you can ask me later.
You'll have to go there.
But yeah, so we have some other cool events that are happening too. But the main thing I like to highlight is just really, we're going to tie in with the school district. We're going to tie in with our park and rec department. We're also going to tie in with our new superintendent. So it's just something unique that we have the opportunity to. Anybody can attend. General admission tickets will be there. So yeah.
It'll be a fun event for the community. One of many, all summer long. Our summer's filling up. Thank you for helping organize that, Mike. We appreciate it. Okay, item 11, discussion. Did you have anything else, Rick?
I did not. No, thank you.
Discussion and possible action on Darlene Hanson versus the City of Onalaska, 2025 CB 184. Note, the Common Council may convene in closed session under Section 1985 1G of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel. The council may convene in open session to take the necessary action and/or continue on with the printed agenda. City Attorney Amanda Jackson, do you have comment regarding this item?
Yeah, so the city received basically a summons complaint in a slip and fall matter. And so we are going to go into closed session to discuss that pending litigation. I believe we can vote on 11 and 12 together. Both items will be in closed session under two separate things, but I do want to take a moment to discuss them each separately, just to give the background of why we're going into closed session. And then under number 12, if you want to go ahead and read that, I've got one more.
Sure. Let me read 12 into the minutes and then we'll ask for your commentary. So I'm just going to go ahead and read number 12 into the minutes. Number 12 is a discussion and possible action on the 2025 Onalaska Professional Police Association, which we normally refer to as the OPPA, contract negotiations. The Common Council may convene in closed session under Section 1985 1E of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting of other specified business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The council may reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and/or continue with the printed agenda. And some of you may be noticing we're following a little bit different format. So we're just trying to explain to the public in more clarity why we're going into the closed session before we go into the closed session, so that there's no ambiguity about what's going on. So I'll go back to Amanda to discuss item 12 before we do go into the closed session to discuss this item.
Thank you, Mayor. So our contract with the OPPA expires at the end of this year. And so we are just getting ready to enter contract negotiations. And so when we do that, we bring forward a discussion to council in closed session to talk about what our negotiating authority is as we enter into those contract negotiations. We also, for open session tonight, will need a representative from the Common Council to sit on that negotiating team with us. Historically, we always have a council member that sits on the negotiating team with us. We did talk about it internally. There will also be the sword contract as well forthcoming. And so there will be more than one opportunity this year. But we thought that given that our finance chair has not sat through contract negotiations yet, that might not be a bad idea, given, budgeting and finance and contract negotiations all go hand in hand, for him to at least go through that experience this year.
Thank you for that. Okay, with that being said, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
We would actually like to pick that person in open session.
Oh, right now?
Yes.
Okay, so right now we would like to, are we gonna, does it take a motion? Or do we
You can
just
just
have a
kind of decide amongst
discussion?
yourselves.
They're typically
Is there typically a motion?
F and P or yeah, or A and F, well, from F, sorry.
Be the
Whatever it
finance
is.
chair, it's usually the finance chair unless there's a conflict. Right?
I guess so the question would be, Mike, are you okay if that is you?
Yeah.
Okay, it will likely require a few meetings during the day, but we can, plan accordingly.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess we'll just do a head nod if everyone is okay with proceeding with Mike filling this role in that capacity. He can report back, don't worry.
Take notes.
I move that we go into closed session to discuss item 11 and 12 per the printed agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Diane Wolf. It's been seconded by Alder Stephen Knott to go into closed session to discuss items 11 and 12 for the reasons that we previously discussed. Going into closed session requires a vote by roll call, so I will ask our city clerk, Joanne Marcon, to call the roll.
Diane Wolf. Aye. Kathy Lohendorf. Aye. Stephen Knott.
Aye.
Jim Benash.
Aye.
Larry Jurassic.
Aye.
Mike Milky.
Aye.
Okay, that voting was unanimous. We are in closed session. The time is 8:45. and we'll take a short break.